Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Yitz. I am a narcissistic abuse life coach. Today we'll be discussing setting spiritual boundaries. Setting boundaries is not necessarily physical. There is an energetic and a spiritual element to setting boundaries. Both of these are extremely important in protecting one's sense of self, one's personal space, and one's emotional, psychological, and mental well-being. Every single person is extremely powerful, and every single person has the responsibility to protect their power, protect their sense of self. And when you're not protecting yourself, then oftentimes we open ourselves up to exploitation, manipulation, and abuse. Every person has the right to decide who is going to come into their life and ultimately how much that person is allowed to and able to take up space in their life. Every person has the right to stand up for themselves and argue on their own personal behalf. This is really the spiritual work of boundary setting. Boundaries are an important way to set the terms of how it is or isn't okay for people to enter into your life. And when this is done, you're able to protect your energy. Spiritual work is not necessarily pretty. A lot of it is difficult, being able to say no, not respond to people's messages, tell people that you no longer want to communicate with them in your life, or walking away from relationships that are dragging you down emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. The real work is being able to protect yourself. In order to allow you to evolve spiritually, you have to be able to protect your space. So wounded people and codependents and childhood abuse victims often struggle with setting boundaries because they fear the abandonment that comes with setting a boundary or saying no. And therefore what they'll often do is they'll kind of allow mistreatment, allow people to come into their life and violate their own boundaries, letting this take place, all in an attempt to kind of hold on to the bond and the companionship, even if there is abuse and manipulation. Setting boundaries is most usually uncomfortable, and oftentimes it threatens the bond. Now, if it does threaten the bond and the bond were to break by setting a boundary, chances are that relationship you were in or that bond you have is toxic, is disrespectful, and even abusive. Setting boundaries in any way, shape, or form, but most specifically spiritual, energetically, and emotional boundaries, is going to upset the narcissist. They're going to want to retaliate and punish you so that you then take down those boundaries so they can continue to violate them and steal emotional, psychological, and even physical resources. By setting a boundary with a narcissist, you are going to be challenging a belief that they have, which is that they own you or they have rights to everything about you. So saying no makes them feel slighted, disrespected, and ultimately they will most usually come after you, combat you, punish you, or create like a smear campaign to get you to take down that boundary. Boundaries in general, and specifically in this case, are so extremely important. You have a right to your boundaries, and you have a right to say no to anybody who disrespects you. No one has the ownership of your time, your resources, your energy, and therefore if somebody does feel that way, that is an indication that they are in fact violating your boundaries and in many instances abusing you. While setting a boundary can be difficult, often induce extreme shame, guilt, and loneliness, it's extremely important to be open to disappointing other people and setting a boundary regardless of these feelings. In order to set healthy boundaries, one thing that's important is self-awareness. If you know who you are, if you have awareness of your spiritual well-being, where you end, where others begin, it'll be a lot easier to set boundaries with people who violate your boundaries, because ultimately you will have more awareness of that violation if you are self-aware, if you know where you stand. You should never feel ashamed or bad or guilty for setting a boundary. And if you do feel badly, then chances are your wounds of being violated early on are being triggered. And chances are you've been violated in many instances from childhood and may not have even realized that you've been violated because it's become such a sort of a natural thing for you. But in reality, many instances you are being violated without realizing it, and therefore it's important to get some distance and become self-aware so you can know who you are and ultimately be able to protect yourself from people who want to violate your boundaries, smother you and control you by not even giving you the permission to express your boundaries or have boundaries. Some signs that you are spiritually being violated are as follows. You justify someone's negative and abusive behavior. You blame yourself for things that go wrong. You feel shame. You start doubting your decisions. You sense something is off and you can't pinpoint what's wrong, but your internal warning system keeps telling you that there's something that's off. Your decisions are disregarded. And lastly, you feel angry but don't know why. If any of these are the case, you may not even realize it, but you are in fact being violated, and you have a right to protect yourself in these instances. If you are struggling to set emotional, energetic, spiritual boundaries, please do reach out. I offer coaching to help you identify your wounds, your patterns of behavior, your coping techniques, your childhood programming that stem back from childhood. You may have many coping techniques and thinking that it's perfectly natural, when in reality, you've never been able to have a say, have a voice, and protect yourself and set those boundaries. So please do reach out. Allow me to coach you in becoming more self-aware, and then ultimately skills on how to communicate with people who violate your boundaries, command respect, and protect your sense of self. I'm going to leave my contact information below. Feel free to reach out. I offer a free 15-minute consultation. So do reach out and discuss how I can be of service to you on your healing journey. I want to thank you so much for being a fan of this channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button, and feel free to like and share this video with anyone who might benefit from it. So thank you guys for listening, and until next time, all the best.